The Marvels is on its way to being the biggest box office flop in the history of cinema. That is what the headlines should read, but it's unlikely they will because they don't want to say it. Because, of course, the access and mainstream media has been cheerleading the decisions that have put Marvel where it is. Since 2019, with Avengers Endgame, Marvel has adopted a Lucasfilm strategy of feminizing a formerly masculine-centric superhero line. Now, in just 4 years, they have gone from being at the highest of highs to the biggest flop of all time. And this is not new for Disney. In the past 12 months, the Walt Disney Company has managed to enter the top 10 flops of all time. The worst movies, the worst category you could possibly want to be in, potentially 5 times. We're talking about Strange World, we're talking about Ant-Man Quantumania, Indiana Jones the Dial of Destiny, The Little Mermaid, and yes, the Marvels, with Wish possibly heading into that list as well. That is a tremendous amount of failure, although the stock price continues to hold steady due to a two-sided proxy battle preparation underway. If you want to know how bad this is, consider that over and over, Disney has now managed to pull off Wrinkles in Times, Lone Rangers. It's managed to pull off Cleopatra, Waterworld, Heaven's Gate, The Flash, Shall We Keep Going? Those movies were the kind that ended studios. Those were the movies that ended the runs of intellectual properties. How bad is the Marvels? Well, The Flash runs laps around it. And Disney would love to have a John Carter instead, because this makes John Carter look like nothing in comparison. It's a long intro today as we set the table, but we just needed you to know how bad this is. And now we're going to tell you what Marvel must do, what Disney is stuck having to do, as this is absolutely unsustainable. There is no way around it, and whether or not the mainstream media is willing to cover it, this is where we are. Analysis right now. Well, to say that Disney has had a bad weekend and is going to have a bad November would be an understatement for the ages. This is probably the worst theatrical month in the history of the Walt Disney Company, as we are now in their 100-year anniversary. Of course, we know that Wish is now on track to do quite poorly, but folks, I put out a video recently saying that perhaps Wish was going to be a bigger bomb than the Marvels, and then this weekend happened. I retract! Because what we have watched is, you just can't outdo this in terms of bad. The Marvels is estimated to drop anywhere between 78 and 81%. Frankly, I didn't think that was possible. That is a history-breaking record for any superhero film, period. And to have started so low already, it's more difficult to drop greater percentages when you start slow. And the Marvels came out of the gate as the worst Marvel movie of all time. So the fact that it's hitting these numbers is just, it boggles the mind. We're going to get into what the excuses are. But first, before we do all that, let's go straight to the article as Lauren Connor of That Park Place and Lou Wasserman's Ghost join us for another journey into Can Disney Keep Doing This? This out of the Hollywood Reporter. Box office, Hunger Games prequel opening to 45 to 50 million. The Marvels suffers historic drop. This by Pamela McClintock. There will be plenty of time for talking about the Hunger Games. Today is not that day because history is happening in front of us. Here's what we have about the Marvels. The outlook continues to look bleak for superhero pick The Marvels, which is falling off 78% to 80% in its second outing to rank as Marvel Studios' worst second weekend drop of all time, as well as the worst for any Hollywood superhero pick. Now, folks, I'm going to tell you that there's a conundrum, there's a paradox in that statement, and that's why If you thought that didn't make sense, we'd love Pamela. We love Pamela McClintock, but this sentence doesn't make any sense. You cannot be the second worst for Marvel and also the worst for all superhero films from any studio ever. Those two things don't work together. So let's just say it's the worst. But among Marvel Cinematic Universe titles, threequel Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania previously sported the worst drop of 69%. That means that the Marvels is the worst, and it's not close. The Marvels is expected to earn $9 million to $10 million for the weekend, putting it in a potentially close race with Thanksgiving, although most rival studios show the Marvels coming in third ahead of Thanksgiving. Now, how bad is this? Well, it's so bad that the Marvels is not even going to come close to beating Five Nights at Freddy's. It's so bad that The Flash will easily, and I mean easily, run laps around the Marvels. It is so bad that in this forthcoming week, I had anticipated doing a video where we would discuss which movie cost Disney more money, Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny, or The Marvels. And Indiana Jones, The Dial of Destiny goes down as one of the biggest flops in all of cinematic history. I don't think it's close anymore. The Marvels is, no one is going to watch this. So I want to go to the panel now, and then we'll get into the excuses in a moment. But gentlemen, let me go to Lauren first. Go ahead, Lou.
I was going to say, go back to the picture at the top of that article, would you, for a second? I have a question because I'm not a Hunger Games person.
Absolutely.
Is that guy wearing a Star Trek communicator? When I saw that earlier today, I thought, wait a minute here. Who's copying who?
Well, more people are interested in that, I promise, than anything that, any insignia that you might find on Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel. I promise you've asked a more important question than anything to do with the Marvels. Lauren, let me go to you first on this. We watched Star Wars be driven into the ground, but they kind of got out of the whole movie-making business. And they didn't have to go through what we're watching out of Marvel. Marvel never got out of the movie-making business, but Marvel decided to do what Star Wars did. And I think we're seeing the full, just the crescendo of how badly this can go. And I think it's a warning sign. Do not put a Star Wars movie in theaters because this will happen again. And frankly, I don't know how they can continue to do this. And for anybody out there who thought that earnings call was a fair representation of the health of the Walt Disney Company, this should be a massive wake-up call to everyone. This is a company that has 4 big production systems in place: Pixar, Disney Animation, Marvel, Lucasfilm. All of them are in critical condition. If they were in the emergency room, they're going to the front. None of these are functioning as they should. Lauren, can they even continue to do this? And do you think that I'm right about this, about there being a connection with the way Star Wars did and Marvel following, and here's where we are, and they're both in the same boat? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think so. But I think there's 2 problems, especially that are plaguing Marvel. One is a problem that's actually in the comic books as well, and that is when your scale keeps expanding, when you have power creep come in, you start losing the stakes. And usually the way that they deal with this in the comics is that it's a little bit like a wrestling match. You have a heel and a baby face, and their power levels scale depending on what you need the story to do. So in one story, you might have one particular hero defeat a particular villain. In the next story, that villain's going to defeat that same hero, because it all just depends on what you need the plot to do. But when you start blowing out the powers and dealing with truly cosmic scale issues, it begins to be difficult to tell how much should we really care about this. This is why it's important that you have a mix of the different kind of stories, so that not everything is a universe-ending event. You still need to have some stories that focus on street-level crime and characters like the Kingpin, so that you have something to ground the universe in. The second thing that I think they're having a problem with is the Marvel humor. Which is initially part of the draw, but you start trying to force that too much. It's like having somebody at the Thanksgiving table who might be a funny storyteller, but they keep trying to stick more and more jokes into their story, and eventually it becomes tedious. It's tiring. And I think that's why they thought maybe they could get away with focusing on cats for their ad campaign and having a dance number and all of that. At a certain point, you've just become silly, and it all goes back to there's a grounding problem. It doesn't feel like any of this means anything anymore.
Lou, I want to go to you. Lou, the reason I want to go to you is because, and we're very careful with your identity and maintaining your anonymity, but I think it's fair to say and okay to say that you have quite the history working in the entertainment industry. I want to go to you because
anecdotage guy, that's for sure. And I have one for this.
Well, I want to go to you because this is untenable. This is unsustainable. I mean, this is well, we're in historic failure mode here. And I guess I'm just asking you something that's rather obvious, but at least it should be. What would happen in any other, studio company, any other era, any other age, any other decade, if this was the result? What level of response would you anticipate from a healthy company?
Well, speaking as somebody who has made, in one case, a series with 9 episodes and they only aired 7 because they canceled it, the word cancellation comes to mind. Uh, you don't keep hitting yourself, your head against the wall because it feels so good when you stop. You stop. But the anecdote I was going to mention, that I think is the real reason for this, or one of the major reasons, is simply this. When I was doing what I used to do, I used to know a guy who was the head of advertising and publicity at Universal. And if any of your listeners, watchers out there have ever been to LA and ever been on the Sunset Strip, you will know that there are literally 50 billboards that usually are advertising the latest, biggest movie. He told me those were entirely strokes to the stars and producers and had zero impact. What had impact, more than ads, more than anything, word of mouth. Now, on one of the earlier broadcasts we did, I mentioned, imagine you are a pixie duster and you are into the Marvels and you don't watch this channel and you don't read the negative stuff and you're really excited. You and your friends bought tickets weeks ago to go see this thing the opening weekend. And you got there early, and got your popcorn and sat down. And when you suddenly noticed there was nobody coming into the theater, you thought, God, there must be a traffic jam, or wow, the parking must be tough, or wow, the line at the popcorn stand must be very long. And when they still didn't show up and the movie played and you came out of it and you knew that Monday morning at school, all your friends were going to ask, so how was it? You would be embarrassed to say it was great because they would find out it wasn't too. Now, word of mouth is a powerful thing. And when you see the second weekend drop off this extremely, what you see is that the word of mouth from the few people who went the first weekend was, don't go. Whatever you do, don't go. And that's the killer. That is the ultimate killer. And we've seen it happen here.
Lou, if we look here, the numbers, the latest we have at the time of recording, Friday to Friday. Remember, folks, the first Friday was bad. I mean, nothing was good in that first weekend for the Marvels. You don't become the worst ever on a good weekend. And to go to the second weekend and see an 87% drop from Friday to Friday.
And go to the next column.
Unbelievable.
4,030 screens versus 3,700 for the winner.
Yes. And then on top of that, Lou, look at this. This is a movie that we believe needs to make about $800 million to break even. It is not, I don't see a way for it to make $100 million domestic.
No.
I mean, okay, but guys, here's the thing, okay? We have been saying as a community for years that this was coming, maybe not even to this level, but we have been saying you can't make this stuff that nobody wants and force feed it, and the audience is going to leave. The audience is gone. The access media now is stuck because they don't want to report on this. But here it is. I mean, what do you guys think is going to be the reaction? I mean, this should stop the presses over at Disney, right? This should stop everything. There should be red alert meetings going into Monday, immediate 180s in every possible way to save their major franchises. But what's really going to happen? What do you guys think is the reaction? And can they swallow their hubris and their pride and admit that communities such as this channel and others called it years ago?
Can they swallow their pride and change? Maybe. We've seen that with the pulling back on Snow White and on the other Marvel thing that's coming that they decided to pull back because, we made a movie about how evil Donald Trump is.
Oh, Captain America, Brave New World,
and
reshooting the whole thing, Lou, is what we're now hearing.
Hell no.
Lou, think about that, though. Reshooting the whole thing, that thing is going to have the cost of 2 Marvel movies now.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
And it's not going to make it's not going to make 2 of today's Marvel movies worth.
You think they're sweating now, Lou? They're making a movie. They're making Captain America, Brave New World, about a guy who does not look or act like the original Captain America, and they're looking at this return right now. You think they're sweating bullets on the ROI?
Yeah, and I think it's a product of as I wrote you a longer piece that I think you're going to run, I hope, in on the website. But it's about momentum. We've got to remember all these movies, whether they're animated or live action, or whether they've got a lot of reshoots or none, it take 2, 3, 4 years to come from the original, hey kids, let's put on a show, to your local movie theater or to Disney Plus for that matter. And back 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't know, as we did later from those videos that were released about all these people at the meetings cackling about how they were putting woke content into everything, and the bosses were thrilled. We thought, gee, these woke people are stupid, but it's a passing fad. It'll go away. But no, they thought they were at the forefront of the great revolution, and by God, they were going to do it.
Oh, there's a revolution, the destruction of Disney, and it is being hearkened into existence as we speak.
It is a it is not a outer destruction. Of course, they blame it on everybody else but themselves. But
well, take a look at this. Let's examine how the mainstream is going to handle this, and catastrophically bad. So what is the mainstream? What is the corporate press going to do? They want Disney to do this, and Disney can't. No company can fail this hard. It just can't happen.
It's telling that they illustrate it not with a picture of Bree or the girls, but of the cat.
Yeah. Well, that's true.
It's like, well, that's safe. People.
That's right. We can blame the cat.
Read the article if there's a cat on it. All the cat fanciers will read the article thinking.
I had not thought of that, Lou. You can't put one of the women up there because then it'll look like, oh yeah, we're shaming the woman. No, the cat, the CGI cat.
It's another one about her. Forget it.
Yeah. The Marvel's box office goes from bad to worse with catastrophic second weekend drop.
I know.
Cat. Yeah, I get it. Lauren, let me read this, and then I want to get you on it. They're trying to grasp a reason that this is happening. So let me just walk you through. It says, we've covered the myriad reasons why the Marvels is struggling so much at the box office elsewhere, but this weekend adds a new reason to the mix: competition. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes easily took the #1 spot. Now, let's just pause there. Now, we're not here to hammer, the Hunger Games yet. That'll be in the future. But every Hunger Games movie in history has topped 100 million in its first weekend. And that was not even adjusted for inflation. This one's coming in at half. It's not a win, no matter what they say.
Yeah.
But it's better than the Marvels. But just know that, folks. This is a very weak Hunger Games movie.
I have a theory about that too, if you want it for 10 seconds, which is that the people who loved those movies, those, 4 movies? A lot of them were very young, and they loved it, and it was great, and they went for it, and they loved Katniss, and they loved the whole thing. But they're now how many years older?
Oh, yeah, they're probably 35 and above.
And so now they're looking back and say, well, that was cute when I was a kid. But so it doesn't mean you inherit that audience. It means you got to find a new one. And they're not there, apparently.
Well, speaking of which, Deadline reports that now this is the way the author is framing this, massive 75% of the opening night audience was aged 18 to 34, with women making up 65% of the crowd. Those are 2 major target audiences for the Marvels, a superhero movie with 3 female leads. It's safe. Oh, wait till we hear that one. It's safe to speculate that a lot of people in those Hunger Games showings might otherwise have seen the Marvels this weekend. But that, folks, is a bunch of bumpkus, because in the very first weekend for the Marvels, when there was zero competition, guess what? Only 10% of the audience or less was women. Far greater than 60% of the attendance for the Marvels original weekend was men. So women already weren't going to see this. It's not like the Hunger Games came in and stole away the women. The women don't want to go see the Marvels.
You know what this proves also? It proves that the huge success of the first Captain Marvel movie, which we all know was attributed to being sandwiched between the Endgame stuff, carried no forward interest in the character into this film. Because at least with Ant-Man, a lot of people liked the first one and said, well, I'll go check it out. And that's why it was, a bigger second week out of people who heard it was so-so, but still were curious enough.
So this argument is completely crazy.
Well, and a lot of the men, let's be honest, gentlemen, a lot of them thought, gee, 3 girls in spandex, maybe it's like sort of clean mud wrestling. Let's go watch it. They were disappointed as hell, too.
Probably so. Lauren, what do you think is going to be the way that the media tries to defend this? Or I am always amazed at what the media comes up with. Just when you think that they might actually be forced to tell the truth, they often are not. So what's their strategy here? What can they possibly come up with?
If they're smart, I don't think that they try for much longer, because the more that you crow about it, the more you're drawing attention to the fact that these numbers stink. So I think maybe they try and keep trying to sell this story for another another week, and then they just let it die.
They got to get out of this. I mean, Disney's got to get out of this. Wish is going to come out. It's going to suck. There is nothing good here. You can't go lower. I mean, folks, if you were wanting to see Disney hit the bottom and hit the mat, we're there. You can't go lower than this. And this is it.
The motivation for the people trying to spin these positives is, I still want Disney to invite me for the next one. Well, what if there isn't a next one? Maybe that's less of a motivation.
You could load up. In this case, gosh, I mean, I'm trying to estimate right now how much money this is going to lose. Let's just throw something out there. Let's say that you load up $350 million in the world's largest wheelbarrow, and you burn it all. That's what this is like. And yet, of course, Brie Larson has not learned. Captain Marvel's MCU future confirmed by Brie Larson following Marvel's release. There is definitely something. This is out of Screen Rant. Brie Larson confirms Captain Marvel will return in the MCU's future after the Marvels, teasing she also knows which project she'll return in. This by Grant Ehrmans. And the game here, folks, is simply they've got to tell you that it's not over. It's not done. She will succeed. She will win. Marvel does believe in her, despite this being catastrophically bad. Historically, I mean, there is no precedent. There's nothing. This is it.
Didn't we just see her being interviewed saying, well, I don't know, does anybody want me to do it anymore? That's
they've got to cover that up a little bit now.
I wonder how much they paid her to go on the late nights now that the strike is over.
You guys buy it that the strike hurt this movie? Anybody buy that their inability to get onto the red carpet and do the press junket that it harmed the box office here? No. Anybody buying that?
No.
Not for a second.
All right. Well, I guess I would wrap up this way. We have often said, where would the change happen? How much longer could Disney go? Was there a bottom that they could possibly hit that would force them to do something different? If they don't change at this point, then I don't have an answer for them, because they don't function the way that every other company in the world functions. Because this is Radio Shack. This is Sears. I can keep going. You can't exist this way. You cannot produce this kind of thing. And the idea that you're going to take franchises and intellectual properties that men enjoy and transform them into being female-centric, and then chastise the men who say, wait a minute, this is a little odd, right? It's just as dumb as if you started selling the smells of leather gloves and fresh-cut grass and gasoline in Bath and Body Works and told all the women to suck it up and spray it on. It would not work. And that's where we are. Gentlemen, I'm going to give you final thoughts, final words on this. Let me know what you think.
You wanted me to bring up a little thing I discovered in preparing for this about that puff piece book by, I forget the woman's name, about the MCU.
Joanne Robinson.
I was looking at Amazon for something else entirely, and they list things they'd like to sell me. It is officially the #1 book on Amazon in the category directing and producing movies. Now, whether that's people who love MCU and want to read it, or whether that's people who want to read how it all fell apart, I don't know. But they're selling a lot of that book.
Kevin Feige, I'm sure, is putting them all over the office. So
I was going to say they've got a warehouse somewhere full of them.
Buying them in bulk, baby, buying in bulk. Lauren, as I go to you for the final thought on this, we watched this happen with Star Wars. We've watched it happen with Marvel. We've watched it happen with Pixar. We've watched it happen with Disney Animation. There's nothing left. I mean, are you flabbergasted? I don't know what words we're going to start switching over to use for where Disney is. I'm out of vocabulary.
I'm not flabbergasted because, I mean, I avoided Phase 4 and Phase 5 almost entirely.
So did everybody else, apparently.
We've been seeing this for a while. I would say if they want to fix this, what they need to do is the same thing that Star Wars should do, is that they need to have somebody, not the people who are currently in charge, as a creative visionary, somebody like a Jon Favreau, who worked his magic in both of these franchises, who actually puts together a plan. What they need is a plan. And what it feels like they've been doing instead is kind of scattershot production, where they're not really worrying about the plot. They're not really worrying about the story or even how things interlink. They try to tease the idea that they're doing that with all of their post-credit scenes, but they're such vague connections that it feels like the whole scrapbooking theory writ large, and it's not working. If you want to get back to making good movies, go back to the traditional ways that you do it. Do pre-production, do production, do post-production. Stop trying to fix it in post. That's not working.
Folks, I'm not here to tell you that Disney is going bankrupt. I'm not here to tell you that Disney is going to cease existing. I am here to tell you that they're doing everything in their power to make it so. I don't think that will happen. But if you wanted to take a class on how to drive a company down into the absolute depths of despair and down into the dirt 6 feet under, they are at it. And this cannot continue. I'm not saying that from my desire for what the company should be. I'm just looking at this and saying, hey, math. Math says you can't do this. You argue with math. Go have fun fighting math. But that's where we are. Folks, talking about math, the more you click that like button, the bigger that number gets, the more YouTube likes us and likes you as well. So click it. And don't forget, share, subscribe. When you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know, where does this go now? We are at the bottom of the barrel. It cannot go lower. This is as bad as it can get. Well, let's not forget Wish is coming. And that may just be the creme de la creme, the cherry on top. Folks, that's it for us for today. Disney has hit absolute rock bottom, or they're about to. The implosion begins. We've called it. We'll continue to call it. We'll analyze it. And hopefully one day we'll get to tell you some positive news about this company and their turnaround. But today is not that day. Today is a day for noticing something historic, the worst failure for any superhero film in the history of cinema. That's where we leave it. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
This is Wilton the Troll reporting for That's Park Place, and I'm surrounded by loving and adoring people who are peacefully trying to make sure that poor kids aren't cold in the winter. And just behind me, you can see a totally natural bonfire for baking cookies or making marshmallows.
Yeah, so, Wilson, we're really appreciate the effort and stuff, but we're looking for real and, accurate news reporting on that Park Place.
So not like most news outlets, huh?
No.